Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you. Featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today we have a person by the name of Charles P. Pascal on our show. Now, our show generally deals with all issues of vitality. But today we have a very special show because we're featuring, as I said, Charles Pascal, who's going to talk about something that you are going to find absolutely fascinating. It's an issue that so many people in the United States are dealing with, and he wants to expose it. He wants to tell everybody about what's going on with regard to something called guardianship. So I'm going to start the show by asking him to define what he means about guardianship. And then we're going to give you a little bit more information about Charles. So Charles, tell the audience, when you talk about this whole concept of guardianship, define it for them. What does it mean?
Absolutely. Susan, thank you very much for having me on your program. Guardianship is a legal process, if used correctly, whereby someone takes over or basically becomes or takes over the rights and the governance of somebody else's life. So, for example, a parent is a guardian of a child. That's been considered a part of our society ever since the beginning. But now we have a concept where if someone becomes old and it is deemed by a court that that person may not be able to make decisions for themselves, someone else will take over and make decisions for that person. And the decisions can be so far-reaching that a person who is old or maybe loses some mental faculties can even lose the right to vote. They can lose the right to see their families. They can lose the right to, of course, drive a car, which they can't do, the right to spend their own money, the right to go to their bank accounts, the right to own a home. Any right that you have as an American citizen, you can lose if a private guardian takes over. And in many cases, when people get old, if you have a family or relatives, a relative will help you and they'll make decisions for you, like a parent making, a child making decisions for an elderly parent. This would be a normal thing. But what has happened is that this new concept of private for hire guardianship has come in and taken over, whereby the courts, in collusion with family attorneys, assign private guardians to take over the rights of seniors who maybe have one sister or brother that have a disagreement with another. And this guardian comes in, and if the senior has any money or any property, the guardian can actually change your will because the senior has no rights as a person anymore. Change the trust. This has been done. Reallocate property. This has been done. So the guardians can, there's even some cases like in Nevada, there's one guardian that's actually living in the house of one lady who died in 2008. I think her last name was Piccoli. And that's the guardian who guarded my wife's mother, and decided, well, I like this house, so I'll just assign the will and I'll just take it. So this is what has been going on, and this is what is being now exposed, and it's not only happening in Nevada, but this process of right seizure, property seizure, family seizure is taking place in all 50 states of the country. So it's a process that started out to be very good, but now is becoming abused by exploiters who wish to steal other people's money by taking their rights.
Okay, now stop for a minute. In 2005, your wife Heidi, who you describe as the person who is just absolutely the love of your life, she got involved, or her mother got involved, Marcy Dudek, that was her mother's name. She was introduced to this horrible guardian injustice, which is taking place, as you said, in every state. Now, your wife, Heidi, how come she didn't become the guardian? How come you had to hire other guardians?
Excellent question. In 2005, Heidi's parents became ill. Heidi and I lived in California. Her parents lived in Nevada. And what happened is that we called Heidi's brother, who was kind of very close to homeless. He was having a lot of trouble in San Diego. His name was Lance, and we had him move to Nevada to take care of Heidi's parents because we thought it would be a good start for him. I couldn't leave California simply because of the fact I was working on a master's degree in counseling at LMU, so Loyola Marymount University here in Westchester. So I was very, very busy in line with that, and I said, Heidi, I can't go, plus working as a teacher at my job, so I couldn't leave. So we did that as a solution. Well, when the father died in 2006, we immediately flew to Nevada and wanted to become guardian. But unfortunately, Nevada had a law at that time that said now this is where it gets scary because this still exists in many states, so your audience needs to listen. Any relative living out of state, so in this case we were California residents and Marcy was a resident of Nevada, cannot become guardian or take care of their own parents. Repeat that again. Any resident out of state cannot become guardian or take care of their own parents. So we came with a plan. We had gotten an apartment, which we were going to pay for Heidi's mom to live in. We had gotten Heidi would take care of her because we lived right next to it. I lived on a boat. Marcy lived next to it. We even had a nurse to come in to take care of it. We were going to pay for that. We had it all set up, and we were actually laughed at, mocked at, scorned at by Commissioner John Norheim saying, you're an out-of-state relative. Your word does not count in Nevada courts.
That's an amazing thing. Now, you also say that within 3 months of taking over Heidi's mother's account, her guardian, Jared E. Schaefer, began to remove large sums of money without a court order.
That is correct.
How did that happen? I mean, that is absolutely incredible. I mean, if you think about it, you were there, you saw, and you witnessed that Heidi's mother needed help, but a person like that was able to remove large sums of money without a court order?
Yes, once a guardian gets appointed, the guardian has power. Now, Nevada has laws, and I'm going to give you an example. They have a whole statute. It's called NRS 159. So when we started seeing the money removed from the account, the first thing happened is I called Mr. Schaefer to protest this because Heidi had a lot of trouble talking a lot of times. She's very shy, but she asked me to do it. So she would be on the phone. And Mr. Schaefer said, I can take what I want. No one's going to do anything about it. Try reporting it, see what happens, and I'll just do it. I will take what I want because I can.
Wait a minute. Where did he get the chutzpah to do that? I mean, that is criminal.
That's right. Well, I'm going to tell you where he got the chutzpah. We didn't know this for years later. But when I told him I would file reports, he said, go ahead. He said, no one will do anything. Well, I filed a report with Catherine Cortez Mazdo, who is now running for United States Senate. She was the Attorney General at the time that Jared Schaefer was guardian, Jared E. Schaefer, Catherine Cortez Mazdo. Her office said, I'm sorry, we don't take reports on guardians. We consider them a family matter. I also tried to file reports with the Las Vegas PD. They said they wouldn't take reports on guardian. But it gets better because if you look in 2009 when I couldn't file reports, move up to 2016, there's an article in the Las Vegas Review-Journal where they were admonished by the Las Vegas District Attorney, now Mr. Wolfson, for refusing to take guardian reports.
Oh, my goodness.
I even flew to the Assembly in 2011 and stated this as a problem. There was a senator there named Shirley Bender, I believe her name. Not Shirley Bender, Shirley, got to think of her, Boyden. Shirley Boyden, who said, yes, we know this is a problem, but we run into a stone wall when it comes to guardians. No one will talk about it. No one will do anything about it.
Okay, hold on a minute. Now, I see in your bio, I see you said something about bribes.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
Jared Schaefer told me on the telephone that he was using my wife's mother's money to bribe, and he actually used the name John Norheim, Judge Ritchie, and he says other judges, to get what he wants.
Now, you know that sometimes this kind of thing, this very crooked and very, I don't even know what to call it. It's just an unbelievable situation. Now, you know that usually the police, the assembly, even the senator may have something to do with this. Now, let's talk about your senator for a moment, Harry Reid. Harry Reid was a very powerful senator before he retired.
That is correct.
And did he have anything to do with this?
We suspect that we do, because there was one thing very interesting. Harry Reid, Senator Harry Reid, and Jared Schaefer used the identical accountant. Their name is Gamet and King, and it's very strange because Gamet and King also has been involved with Reid and Schaefer for land deals in Nevada. So yes, there's a very strong possibility, because a lot of times influential people will use the same people. So Sean King is the one, and I forget, Bruce Gamet is the other accountant firm, and they tie Harry Reid and Jared Schaefer together. They've been together for many, many years. So there's a very good chance that Senator Reid has a chance to it. Schaefer had dropped names like that to me on the phone. He had said, well, Senator Reid has got my, ASS. And he'd said, Catherine Cortez Masto will do nothing. And where I really experienced the problem is, now this is where it gets really bad. Mm-hmm. In 2009, California courts were going to grant us a hearing to remove Jared E. Schaefer as guardian. Right. Why? Because the IRS had called us and told us that no taxes had been paid for 3 years.
Wow.
And that the homeowner, the home that Marcy had, was having liens placed on it by the homeowners association because guardian Jared E. Schaefer had not paid the bills. And because we had protested about the amounts of money being removed, Jared E. Schaefer had cut off all accounting and correspondence, so we couldn't see anything going on in the account or any bills that had or had not been paid. So we were living in the dark.
Yeah.
So this way,
Charles, let me stop you for a second. Many people who have committed crimes don't seem to be caught specifically for the crime. They usually are caught for tax evasion. Some of the most, horrible criminals, mafia, people like that, just were put in jail because of the fact that they didn't pay any taxes.
That's right.
So tell me, so what stopped the government from putting these guys in jail?
I think Harry Reid may have something to do with it, because here's an interesting part we do know about Schaefer. Schaefer, when he was public guardian of Clark County, he was public guardian from 1979 to 2002. He was put there by a guy named Manny Cortez. Manny Cortez was the guy that ran the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. So what happened was he had a salary of $60,000 a year. But how did this man acquire approximately $5 to $10 million of commercial property in key Las Vegas blocks?
What I want to know, I have to ask a question of you based upon what you told me. Now, the guardianship that your mother-in-law was on, how long was that all part of this whole scandal? I mean, how long did this happen?
The guardianship started in 2007 in May, and it ended when Marcy E. Dudet died on February 25th, 2010. So it went along for quite a few years. What happened in the meantime, I think the worst part is that when it first started, the courts in California, or not the courts in Nevada, had said that Marcy could remain in California for the rest of her life, because she had gone to California in 2006 to get away from her son who was abusing her, etc. Mm-hmm. So when they had a trial in Nevada, because there was a home in Nevada, they assigned the Nevada guardian, Jared E. Schaefer. So you had a situation where Marcy lived in California but had to have a Nevada guardian. Well, In 2009, what happened is when we put the motion to remove Jared Schaefer ordered Lance, the son, to come to California and directly violate a Nevada court order that said Marcy was to remain in California for the rest of her life.
Wow. And
he brought her back to Nevada. So here was a woman in 2009, which is a picture you have, vibrant. This was taken on August 2nd, 2009, vibrant. She even had a boyfriend after her husband of 50 years died that was more companionship and everything else. They take her to Nevada, and within 5 months under Jared Schaefer's care after being forcibly kidnapped, she was screaming and crying when they put her in the car because she didn't want to go. She died of dehydration, and no one made her drink water, and her weight went from 134 when she left California to the date of her death, 122.
Now, hold on. Did I hear you say that she was kidnapped?
That is correct. She was kidnapped by Lance Dudek, Heidi's brother, and Lance even told us afterwards that Jared Schaefer had told him it was okay to, in his words, he said, blow off the California court.
Wow. Okay. Now, tell the audience a little more about what the California courts did, because it sounds like they were in cahoots almost with those people in Nevada.
California courts, yes. There was a judge who retired, and we don't know why she retired. Her name was Reba Goetz, Goetts. When Marcy was kidnapped, we went back to that judge, and the judge did nothing. The judge says, well, we'll get to it. Maybe we'll try to find ways of bringing her back. Let's have a meeting in 2 months. So they kept kicking the can under the carpet. So as a result, while Marcy was kidnapped in August of 2009, we started trying to get her back in August of 2009. The court postponed a meeting till late September of 2009. Then they postponed it again till November of 2009. And then we got the word from Nevada that because Marcy's condition had gone down, that's because Marcy was getting sicker. They said she's too sick to travel, so everything got dropped, and she died. Now, one of the things I will tell you, in the early days of the kidnapping, we were talking to Marcy, and she said, my food tastes funny, and I feel funny, and they're trying to force me to take things that I never took before. I don't feel well. And she kept saying this, and every time we talked to her, she kept getting worse and worse. So we strongly suspect that they were drugging her and that she was taking psychotropic drugs. Wow.
Now, you said that Marcy had a boyfriend. She was leading a kind of nice life in the last stages of her life. She was an octogenarian, wasn't she? She was over 80.
She was over 80, yes. She was actually 89.
Okay. So did she have, as people would, they laugh when I say this, but did she have all her marbles?
She had a lot of them. I would say there was a few times she might not remember something, but she was able to take care of herself very well. She had her marbles. They declared her incompetent, which is natural. It's part of the guardianship system. They will do that. But many times we asked her who the president was. She knew at the time that the president when she was alive was George Bush. She knew what building she was in. She knew what day it was. And then there was sometimes she had a little trouble, but she was one of those kind of people that maybe had a slight case, but she could get by if she had a little assistance.
Yeah. Now, how prevalent? We're talking about Marcy, but let's tell the audience how prevalent this situation is.
Well, there's a website out that I'm very close with, and it's called Stop Guardian Abuse. It's actually National Association to Stop Guardian Abuse, and the website is stopguardianabuse.org. The lady's name is Elaine Renoir, and it's a nonprofit website. We're all members. She posts problems like this occurring in all 50 states. In fact, Elaine is working directly with the government GAO, General Office of Accountability, to try to remedy this problem, and they're working with her. There's also another website that we work very close with, Dr. Sam Sugar out of Florida. He has a little different path in the movement, but he's trying to do the best job he can. He has been in contact with members of Congress and the Senate. working with Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. There is, so that's the second advocate. Then the person who broke the story for us, I want to mention, is Steve Miller, very prominent journalist out of Las Vegas, former city councilman. He has been vital in getting this story published within Nevada and working with all the rest of the people. Colton Lockhead, another man from Nevada, who actually wrote the first article in the Review Journal, first major newspaper to break the story of guardianship in Nevada. And then you have all of these other places that are coming. Then we now have the Koch brothers, who have now come into it very strongly. They're using an ad against Catherine Cortez Masto. Their representatives have told us that they consider guardianship fraud one of the major drainers of Social Security, so they're going to try to do what they can to see where the bad guys are, expose them, and try to stop them. So this problem occurs in all 50 states. Yeah. Now, why it occurs is this. You have a cabal. You get a court system. You get a group of attorneys who practice family law. They will have a powerful say as to who becomes the commissioner or judge. Then you have the guardians themselves, and they work together to facilitate and drain money from these families, because anybody that has over $200,000 is going to be somebody that the guardians are going to want to drain.
Oh, so hold on. We'll let you finish the statement in a moment. So I didn't ask you, did your mother-in-law have a lot of money, and are most of the people who are tapped or kind of faced with this problem, are they people with a lot of money, and what do you call a lot of money?
Well, she had, we even call it a lot of money. I used to be a financial planner. She had an estate before the guardians took over of $1.4 million.
You don't call that a lot of money? That's a lot of money.
No, it's not a lot today, but it's money. It's a substantial sum, but it's money. But she had an estate of about I don't call it a lot of money. I call it a nice amount of money, but not a lot. And she had money, because there's people that have been ripped off in our guardian families now that I'm seeing of $10 million, $20 million. There's a guy named Hernandez in California that our guardian, Jared E. Schaefer, got a $10 million settlement, and he's never seen a penny of it.
That's unbelievable.
So then when I say $1.4 million, it is a lot of money to a lot of people, but you have to know that the amounts of money in this, the General Accounting Office thinks that this amount of money could be in the trillions, and when they announce, not the trillions, but I should say in the hundreds of billions, when they come out with their report sometime next year, they're going to show that we're probably looking at $500 billion, maybe close to $1 trillion that have been drained out of the system in all 50 states. Money that could have been used for Social Security to help a lot of seniors.
Yeah, but see, this is what I don't understand. When you're talking all about this problem, the guardianship problem, there's organizations like AARP, there's organizations that are all, representing senior citizens, a lot of them. Now, have they written about it? Have they described what's going on to the people who read their newsletters and magazines and newspapers and you name it? What's going on? I mean, why is this not?
I can tell you, I called AARP when my mother was kidnapped. They told me they didn't want to get involved in guardianship. I explained the problem to them as I explained it to you. They said they didn't want to get involved.
Did they tell you why?
They just said they don't get involved in family matters. That was it. I called the Gray Panthers. They're another organization. Don't get involved in family matters. Then I went to law enforcement, the FBI. Don't get involved in family matters. Attorney Catherine Cortez Masto, Las Vegas Police, even our former Attorney General in California, who's now the governor, Jerry Brown. No one would get involved in this. It seems that nobody wanted to, at least in 2009 and 10 when this was going on. Nobody wanted to touch this.
Now, has that changed?
It's starting to. It's turning a battleship, and I'm going to tell you who's turned it. First of all, the new Attorney General in Nevada, Adam Laxalt. He's turning a lot of heads. He's Republican. There's a Democratic Senator, Amy Klobuchar, who has got Senate Bill 3270, along with her Republican counterpart, Chuck Grassley. They're trying to change things. We've been working with them. there's slowly beginning to become an awareness because people know there's a problem. But I think when they see how large it is, it's one of those things you have to deal with. It's like you're looking at this house, and it's a total fixer-upper, and it's destroyed, and you go, when am I going to get to this? And your eyes open and your mouth waters, but you know you got to deal with it. So slowly some politicians are beginning to come around and saying guardian abuse by private guardians is very, very serious.
Yeah.
And what I've told a lot of people, I want to say this out, I've said, look, it's regulation, and here is the problem. I'm going to put it right on the table.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is no training. If you want to be a real estate agent, you're going to go through hundreds of hours of training. You want to be a financial planner, and you're going to handle people's lives, you're going to go through hundreds of hours of training. You're going to take continuation courses. To be a guardian and have more power than any of these other professions, a 40-hour online course and a test that you can buy the answers from the National Guardianship Association, they call it test practicing, can make you a guardian, and you don't even have to have a college degree.
Right. So after your experience, that's your proposal for a solution to solve this problem?
Well, that's one of them. The second one is if we don't get response from law enforcement, we're getting people in our group that are prepared to take the United States to the United Nations World Court and charge that guardianship and forced guardianship conscription into guardianship is a violation of human rights. You have now that there's a move in the World Court for reparations to slaves that happened in our slavery situation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we think we have a case 10 times stronger than what happened 200 years ago, even though it was very bad, because what we're talking about is happening to seniors today, October 3rd, 2016, not 200 years ago.
Right. So you mentioned the words human rights.
Yes, because when you're a senior and you're in guardianship, your human rights are taken away. You can't vote. You can't call your family. You're restricted. I'll give you an example in Marcy's case, but I found this to be in hundreds of other cases.
Mm-hmm.
The guardian decided because we were fighting him. He actually had told Marcy, because we found it out when we got one guy to sneak a call to her,
mm-hmm.
that the guardian had said, your family no longer cares for you, you're going to die alone.
Oh.
The person who told her that, her name was Patience Bristol, Bristol, and Patience Bristol got convicted and went to prison. She was supposed to serve from 3 to 8 years for stealing money from the elderly. One of those was Marcy Dudek. Although they when the plea count came down, they only gave her one count, but she went to jail for it. But she was the one that was taunting my mother-in-law, saying that her family didn't care for her and it was better that she just die alone.
Oh, it's very difficult to listen to this because it just seems just so incredible. It seems like there are so many things that are going on all over the United States with regard to this issue of guardianship, and I'm finding it very difficult to understand how people, when I say people, how people in the government, how people in the police departments are just putting a cover over this. It just doesn't sound logical in this date and time.
Well, it's easy to put a cover over it because let's look at how. When you get appointed by a guardian, who are you appointed by? The courts. So it's very easy for somebody to say, well, it was done. If it was done by the court system, it's obviously okay. Because I had people tell us that. But then here's the question that your audience has to ask. What happens if the courts are corrupt? What happens when judges are bribed? People outside the court can't say, well, the judge was bribed, so we're going to reverse this ruling. Because in Marbury versus Madison, that established the Supreme Court to review cases. Our judicial branch has become strong, and rightfully in many ways it has to be strong. But what do you do when that particular branch goes rogue or goes corrupt or goes bad? You can do nothing about it. So the average person will say, if the courts say it's okay, it's okay. And it's actually the courts themselves that have been covering up this crime.
Right. Wow. This is a story that is a very interesting one. We as a society have to learn what's going on in our in all the places around the world, not only in our own country, because sometimes we have to learn from some of the mistakes that were made. Well, here we're at the last moment of our show, Charles. So to finish up the show, what is it that you'd like to leave the audience with?
What I'd like to leave the audience with is that contact your politicians, your senators, your congressmen, and let them know that you want something done about guardianship, that you want strong legislation passed, that you would like guardians to take extremely hard tests, and maybe remove guardianship from the courts, to back Senator Amy Klobuchar's bill and to the Klobuchar-Grassley bill, to work with the National Association of Against Guardianship, StopGuardianAbuse.org, work with that website, and try to put an end to this problem. And I'm also going to tell the audience all the names mentioned: Jared E. Schaefer, Patience Bristol, John Norheim. Start Googling these names. Elise Tyrell, Schaefer's attorney who backed him up in the sign business, because how Schaefer got political control is that he owns all the signs in Nevada, so when you want to run for judge, you get free signs if you do what he wants. All of these things are out there. Google them. Google Jared Schaefer signs become a public nuisance so that you will understand the gigantic web of control. You'll see it in Nevada, but you'll see it in every state. It all may be a little bit different, but it's a very serious problem. That may be one of the things that could actually steal and break your Social Security and take everything, because you're losing a lot of it to guardian fraud.
Oh, wow. Well, my guest today has been Charles P. Pascal. When you listen to his story about guardianship and all the things that are going on, I think you're going to find this just an absolutely interesting story. So I want to thank Charles for being on the Susan Brender Show and giving us all this information. It's my pleasure, Charles. So anyway, I want to say thank you for being on my show, and good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.